We are but a couple days away from Thanksgiving, and things are slowing down in the news, but there still is a lot of big happenings going on. And the one thing we can see is that the ball has just started rolling, or a better way to put it is the snowball has begun rolling down the hill. Timcast.com reports majority of GOP voters want Republican majority in Congress to investigate potential impeachment of President Biden. Yeah, now, in the majority, not so much. Another poll shows that most people really don't care. And I think that's an important thing for Republicans to remember. You must play to your base, the activists who push the cause for you, but you also got to remember that people care about kitchen table issues. And if you dedicate all of your time to impeaching Joe Biden, you ain't going to do so well in 2024. There's a lot going on. And the only thing that really matters, I got to be honest, is ballot harvesting. Because while we can see these issues that rile us up and excite us, the basement strategy is working. That's what the Hill says. Democrats are hiding in the basement because they know ballot harvesting means they can say nothing and win. And this means Republicans, too, can say nothing and win. And this is actually really bad. We're not debating ideas anymore. We're arguing procedure. That's where we're at. We're deciding who rules this nation, not based on who has the best ideas, but who can manipulate the system the best. So we're in trouble. Because where I see this going, dark, dark places. But Donald Trump, of course, was always, we have the story from Real Clear Politics, a symptom, not the cause of. The populist movement is people rising up saying they're sick of this. And they want something to change. They're sick of their questions going unanswered. They're sick of these problems never being solved. And because we're going down a path where it's just policy and procedure and not actually campaigning on the issues, you see that this will get worse. For the left, I guess. For the right, maybe there will be victory. But if Donald Trump and everything he represents is a symptom of the fact that people were not getting satisfaction, certainly, the movements being made by Democrats and their basement strategy will only make things worse. And I truly fear there will come a point people won't even realize it. The violence starts. I mean, the violence has started. I've heard it over and over again from people saying we're in a civil war. You've heard it. You've heard it from me. You've heard it from the mainstream media. You've heard it from MSNBC. I hear people in the street talking about this. And many people say, oh, it's silly. It'll never happen. Well, whatever happens, it will happen gradually and then suddenly, meaning we see all these things bubbling up in the press. Threats against Trump, threats against Democrats. I mean, political threats. They're trying to arrest Trump. They're trying to fine him. They're trying to bring Stormy Daniels back up. It will never stop. No longer are the days where we say, good sir, your policy on taxes makes no sense. I'm reminded of Futurama. Such a great show. I love citing Futurama. 1,000 years in the future, they're watching a political debate between John Jackson and Jack Johnson, clones. And the one guy says, I think your tax policy goes too far. And the other guy goes, well, I think your tax policy doesn't go too far enough. The joke was they had positions, but they were meaningless. They were basically the same person. And while the joke was funny to us at the time because it showed that the uniparty was the same thing no matter who you voted for, the reality is we're not even going to have that in the future. In the future, it's going to be don't know, don't care, vote based on the D or the R. We saw a tragedy happen. I'm not going to get into the specifics because I don't want to rehash that story in this segment that's political. But my friends, we are dangerously close to a position where violence is at our doorstep. We can make these points, we can argue all this, but sooner or later there will be a pop. And it doesn't matter what you say or do, people will just say, I don't care. Your side is the bad side, so be it. And that's what's happening before our eyes. If the basement strategy is the reality for Democrats, I hope you're ready. But let's read these stories and give a good breakdown of the current state of the political machine and the positive news. There are victories. Elon Musk taking Twitter and the Republicans winning means maybe there will be some kind of political control that stops the violence before it gets out of hand and things go back into, law and order. We're not in a law and order state right now, my friends. Certainly not. The DOJ has been weaponized by the Democrats. They're not campaigning on policy. They're campaigning on destruction and a cult. A cult, not occult. The Republicans are desperately saying facts don't care about your feelings. That's not working too well, is it? We'll see what happens. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com. If you want to read stories like this, become a member by clicking the Join Us button. As a member, you'll get access to exclusive segments from the Timcast IRL podcast, as well as Cast Castle Vlog and Tales from the Inverted World, and Chicken City. Well, Chicken City is free. You can watch Chicken City, but my favorite show, by the way. You'll be supporting our journalists, more importantly, and helping us pursue this mission and build culture. I know a lot of people want to see a lot more than we have, but we're getting there. We're not a movie studio. We don't have this investment, or we don't have the ability to just launch a sitcom overnight. So we're working up towards it. Cast Castle is improving greatly. We're learning how to do things better. We're bringing in experts and consultants to figure it out. But I'm not going to take investment to launch a studio because I don't want to give control to anybody. Timcast is 100% owned and operated by me. There's no one else. I'm the only board member. I'm the CEO. It's my company. I run it. That's the way it is. Pros and cons. It means it'll take us longer to get things rolling, but with your support, we can make it happen. But it also means there will never be a point where someone takes this company and makes it do stupid things. Challenging, but we can do it. Here's the story from timcast.com. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Here we go. Majority of GOP voters want Republican majority in Congress to investigate potential impeachment of President Biden. Just 6%. Let's just say this is Cassandra Fairbanks reporting. Just 6% of Democrat voters want Republicans to investigate an impeachment as a top priority. Among Republicans, 55% consider impeachment to be a top priority. About 28% of American voters say they back an investigation into Hunter Biden, according to the Morning Consult poll. About 7% of Democrats and 52% of Republicans, say the next Congress should focus on investigating Hunter Biden. You see, that's funny. 52% of Republicans say that. You know, normally I'd say, hey, you should all be focusing on specifically kitchen table issues. I wouldn't say that anymore. Look, here, let me clarify this. I think Republicans need to have a strong focus on kitchen table issues outright because they need to make sure they're reaching regular people. But in reality, the only thing that really matters is ballot harvesting. So they can say whatever they want. The left is going to accuse them of being fascists, and that's it. And then they're going to go door to door and they're going to get people to vote based on the D. That's it. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who is poised to become Speaker in the new Congress, told CNN earlier this month that while he is opposed to using impeachment for political purposes, that doesn't mean if something rises to the occasion, it would not be used. Please, for the love of all that is holy, impeach Joe Biden. The Republicans are already investigating him. So I'm just saying, please impeach him. Okay, we need that. We need the investigation. We need the statements. I'm also saying Republicans should better make sure they're talking to regular people. 4 of the resolutions have been sponsored by there have been at least 8 resolutions to impeach Biden since he took office. 3 of them focused on his handling of migrants at the border, 3 over his fumbled withdrawal of Afghanistan, 1 related to Hunter Biden's business dealings, and 1 over the eviction moratorium during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. All worthy candidates. 4 of the resolutions have been sponsored by Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has vowed to reintroduce them into the new Congress after the current one expires. She believes Joe Biden should have been impeached as soon as he was sworn in. So, of course, she wants it to happen as soon as possible. For his part, Biden shrugged off the possibility of being impeached. Blah, blah, don't know, don't care, impeach him. Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. The ball's rolling and there's stuff happening. And it is fanciful, to say the least. Adam Schiff slams Kevin McCarthy after he promises to remove 3 prominent Dems from their committees. He will do whatever Marjorie Taylor Greene wants him to do. Oh, I find it so funny. Shut up, Schiff. You're such an awful person. Adam Schiff is an evil, evil man. I don't use that word lightly, but we are in dangerous times. Adam Schiff released the private phone records of a private American citizen. Wow. A man who did nothing wrong. That's crazy. Among other people, don't get me wrong. Adam Schiff criticized House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy for vowing to remove 3 Democrats from their committee assignments if elected Speaker. McCarthy has his sights set on removing Rep. Ilhan Omar, who is on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, good, Reps Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell, who are on the House Intelligence Committee from their assignments. Very good. And I'll give you 2 simple reasons why it's good. 1, Adam Schiff lied. He said, I have proof that Donald Trump colluded with Russia right here, but I can't show it to you. Lie. Eric Swalwell was in a relationship, it's been reported, with a Chinese spy. Probably shouldn't be getting key intelligence, should he? I'll keep that promise, McCarthy said Sunday on Fox News' Sunday Morning Futures, after reporter Maria Bartiromo asked if he will deliver on removing Omar, Schiff, and Swalwell from committees. Schiff responded to McCarthy's potential undertaking on a Sunday episode of the ABC's This Week, saying, "Well, I suspect he will do whatever Marjorie Taylor Greene wants him to do. He's a very weak leader of this conference, meaning that he will adhere to the wishes of the lowest common denominator. And if that lowest common denominator wants to remove people from committees, that's what they'll do." Marjorie Taylor Greene got removed for committees because she said things before she got elected to office. How about we remove you for the things you did in office, to say the least? In order for McCarthy to become House Speaker next year, replacing Pelosi, he will need to win 218 votes in the House. It's possible the effort may prove to be a challenge given Republicans' narrow margin of victory this midterm season. Well, come on. Republicans are at 219. They got it. Now, there were 31 individuals in the House Freedom Caucus saying they would oppose McCarthy, and I'm all here for it. You cannot whisper sweet nothings into my ear, McCarthy, and have me just agree to this. But there is one thing that sways me. Marjorie Taylor Greene supporting Kevin McCarthy. Now, I don't trust Kevin McCarthy. I do trust Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's funny, isn't it? They want to smear her and they want to lie about her. No, I like Marjorie. She's cool. She hangs out. She speaks freely and truly and often incorrectly. I don't mean all the time or the majority of the time, but she said things that are wrong. She's owned up to it. The media smears her with the things she says, take it out of context. But my view of Marjorie is that every time we've had her come in, it's felt real. Like we were actually talking. And she has opinions, and we disagree about some things. But I didn't feel like she was just saying things for the sake of saying things. That I can't stand. You see it all the time. People will come out. McCarthy, for instance, he's that kind of guy. He'll come out and say, I'm gonna get rid of these off their committees. And you're like, okay, it's a good thing. But I don't believe you, dude. I mean, like, maybe he'll do this, but I don't believe he actually cares. He's establishment. He just wants to be in office. He wants to be in power. He wants his minor victories where the Republicans slowly lose to Democrats because the establishment Republicans are Democrats driving a speed limit. Marjorie Taylor Greene comes in and she's just like, grooming is bad. Milo works for me. That was funny. Got to stop the immigration stuff. And I'm like, yep. Sounds like she's actually saying things she believes. I'll tell you this. Marjorie Taylor Greene for Speaker of the House. If we're being real, Kevin McCarthy, bleh. But Marjorie Taylor Greene probably wouldn't win. I don't know. So we'll see if they vote for Kevin McCarthy. I really doubt they're going to vote for Hakeem Jeffries. So we'll see. Some Republicans have criticized McCarthy, including Adam Kinzinger, who said McCarthy has been siding with the insurrectionists. Yeah, Kinzinger is not a Republican, and he's out anyway, so who cares? Liz Cheney called McCarthy the leader of the pro-Putin wing. She's also not a Republican, and she's out, so who cares? Greene supports McCarthy's efforts, calling it a bad strategy for Republicans to go against him. Under his leadership, he has said he will reinstate her on committee assignments despite her far-right ideologies. Like what? What far-right ideology? Spare me your nonsense. Schiff, who is also on the committee investigating the January 6th insurrection, continued. It's going to be chaos with Republican leadership. And sadly, the crazy caucus has grown among the Republicans. Reps for McCarthy and Schiff did not immediately respond to insiders' request for comments. Well, here's the real issue. I'm all for it, man. Let's see it. Let's see some actual change. Let's see some accountability. But here's the reality. Joe Concha hits the nail on the head with the hammer. The basement strategy is working for Democrats. Well, he hits the nail on the head in some respects, but we can argue some other points. He says, Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs will be the next governor of Arizona, barring a recount that says otherwise. Joe, and a legal challenge and ballot curing. We don't know. I mean, we'll see. And when the Democrat is sworn in, she'll likely thank her handlers privately for their media strategy in getting her over the finish line after looking like the underdog going into the election against Kari Lake. Hobbs embraced the same strategy that served Joe Biden as a candidate and continues to serve him as president, almost entirely avoiding the media, shunning any interviewer who may ask a tough question, and rejecting the opportunity to debate an opponent. Hobbs did all three, got some benign criticism for it, and still won a razor-thin margin. I'm going to pause real quick. Guys, just because the media claims it happened doesn't mean it happened. It has not been certified. We don't know who won. Currently, Kari Lake is losing. The certification has not occurred. For many of these elections, certification has happened. That means it's done. They say, okay, we got it. 2 counties, I think 3 actually, have said they're not going to certify. They're waiting. Now, some have reported it's a protest that they plan to certify later when they reach the deadline. But Kari Lake seems to be entertaining a legal challenge. I think it's highly unlikely she wins this one. And I am a fan of Kari Lake. I have an autographed hat from her. We have 2 hats from her. I think she's great. I think she's one of the best politicians. She's not really a politician, but one of the best people to run for office in this country. Her, like Marjorie, she's real. You can hang out with Kari Lake and you talk to her and it feels like you're talking to a human being. But more importantly, like, Kari Lake is an imposing figure. And what I mean by that is she's the kind of person, like Trump, they walk into a room and it just feels like you can feel the energy. It's just there. These are people of strong mind. Trump less tactful. Kari Lake, she's got the charisma. She's got the mind for this, the media savvy. She understands the policy. She's got the tact for it. Presidential material, hands down. Now, some people have said vice president. That's what they're saying right now. They think she's going to run for VP. Yeah, maybe, but Kari Lake is presidential. It is a sight to behold, man. Look, I got to tell you, I'm a fan. You sit in front of Kari Lake and you ask her and you hear her speak and you know she's got what it takes beyond the X factor. I typically don't trust all politicians. I typically don't trust a lot of politicians. But you know what I like? This populist wave. These handful of people that you sit down with and it feels legit. That's not everybody who claims to be a populist. Thomas Massie, good dude. I've criticized him in the past. But when you actually talk to him, he's like a real guy just telling you stuff's going on. Like, imagine you're at a bar and the person next to you starts talking and you're like, is that true, man? I don't know. And you're having a real conversation. That's what it feels like with Marjorie Taylor Greene, Kari Lake, with Thomas Massie. I've not hung out with Rand Paul, but I trust Rand Paul. I like him. But no, Kari's probably more like talking to the bartender, like somebody who really knows what they're talking about when you're asking about drinks. And it feels genuine. It's clear, quote, it's clear that Kari Lake is much more interested in creating a spectacle and having the spotlight than actually having a substantive discussion about the issues, Hobbs recently told NBC's Meet the Press. When asked why she would not debate Lake, the answer got little pushback from the moderator. Here's my point when we bring all this stuff together. This is where we are currently. Real Clear Politics says Trump was always the result of the conservative populist coalition, not the cause. Trump said a lot of things people liked. But you know what people liked more than policy? Vigor, rage, confidence. The populist wave, chanting build the wall and lock her up. A policy position and a retribution position. So conservatives, of course, tend to be the party of facts, don't care about your feelings. Democrats, of course, tend to be the party of feelings, don't care about your facts. Which brings us to the basement strategy. Donald Trump is caricatured by the right as riding a griffin with a Pegasus, holding a sword and wearing golden armor and other nonsense like that. I know, it's funny, it's silly. They view him as the leader of people rising up and saying enough. The Democrats hide, convince their cult to vote. It's a scary reality if you think about it. Both sides are just saying we've had enough. One side fueled by logic and sometimes wrong, but trying to get things right. That's the Republicans, mind you. And the Democrats fueled by fear and tribe, as evidenced by the basement strategy. Don't come out. Don't give us your opinions. Don't tell us what you want to do. Just say Orange Man bad. It's a cult. Here's what they say about Kari Lake. I love how they can write both of these things in the same headline. Phil Boas for AZ Central says, Kari Lake deserves our contempt, but so does an election system that breaks down. Why does Kari Lake deserve our contempt? She was right. What's wrong with you? Isn't that crazy? She was like, hey, our machines are having issues. We should fix those. And then the machines had issues. Come on. He writes, it's a very old observation that mainstream media is mostly liberal and sees the world as liberals see it. It's not a complaint. It's just the way it is. The nature of a business that attracts more people from the left than the right. So it is, well, it's because of where people live, mostly. So it is also clear to me that had the malfunctioning equipment in nearly 1 in 3 Maricopa County polling places frustrated Democrat voters in the same way, as it did Republicans, the New York Times never would have parachuted in, never would have parachuted in its crack team of reporters to tell us the election was hunky-dory. Nor would they have done a sub-headline treatment like this one. Quote, Miss Lake supporters say in testimonials they had problems at Phoenix area polling sites, but a review by the New York Times shows that most of them successfully cast their ballots. New York Times says nothing to see here. The Gray Lady had not come to investigate Maricopa County's election meltdown. It came to knock down Republican reaction to it. So it waited 22 paragraphs to offer this. Quote, oh, I love it. Many of the voters' accounts and the Lake's campaign's claims have their origins in a widespread malfunction of voting equipment early on the morning of Election Day that caused delays and confusion across the Phoenix area. End of quote. What did Joe Biden say? Read the line, or what was that? I can't remember. 28 paragraphs to serve up these two relevant sentences. Isolated printer malfunctions are common enough, but the scale of what happened in Maricopa County was far from ordinary. At least one printer failed at 70 of the county's 223 polling places on Tuesday morning. Except voters were disenfranchised. Yes, the scale was far from ordinary. It demanded the attention of election officials and poll workers across the greater Phoenix for much of the day. The problem was huge. So were the lines it created. I saw for myself at my own voting center where the line snaked outside the building filled with dozen upon dozens of weary voters. These were the stalwarts who waited hours to go through the bottleneck to cast a ballot, much like those Republicans who are putting their stories on video for Kari Lake and co. They weren't the disenfranchised because they made darn sure they weren't. The disenfranchised were the ones who didn't wait, who didn't have the time or physical stamina, think of the elderly, to stand in line for hours to cast a ballot. They took one look at those lines and said, screw it. Good luck finding them. Now Republicans are mad. Their candidate for governor is refusing to concede and says she's assembling a legal team to gather evidence to challenge the outcome. Hear, hear, Kari Lake, you do it. Was the election rigged? No way. There's no way Maricopa County Republicans who oversaw this election stole it. They're professional and honest people who would never sabotage a vote, let alone their own party and its candidates. Is Kari Lake out of line? Not just out of line, but preposterous, making accusations without evidence and calling election officials clowns and imbeciles. Should there be a redo? No, full stop. However, a lot of media attention covering the spectacle have understated what happened to voters on November 8 in Maricopa County. And there you have it, my friends. Let me pause and break that quote reading and go through it one more time. Was the election rigged? No way, he says. Well, my response is probably not. Okay, well, it depends on what your definition of rigged is, I guess. If you mean that there was ballot harvesting, there was. Does it mean there was illegal ballot harvesting? I don't know. We know there was ballot harvesting because it's illegal in Arizona. You just have to be a family member or certified as someone's caregiver. If you want to argue that Democrats use the mail-in voting system and you call that rigged, I get it. I just say Democrats are winning by the rules, not winning based on arguing ideas. Republicans call that being rigged, I suppose. Let me tell you a story. Before I started recording this, I saw a video on YouTube about Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering. Rules. Let me explain to you something. Many of you may not be familiar with the game Magic the Gathering. It is one of the most popular card games in the world. And in fact, many of the players are pro poker players as well. So it gets interesting. The rules are not super complicated, but there's a culture around the game. I watched a video where professional players, I'll keep it very, very vague and simple for you. They were playing a game. And what happened was there's a few things that to be argued. There's phases in the game. Things take place during phases. There's the beginning of combat. It's a game, right? And then there's the declaring your attackers. Forgive me if you're like, I don't get this, Tim. Just bear with me. The point is, there's colloquial terminology and explicit terminology. And what happened was a guy ended up winning a game because the Spanish speaker didn't understand that there was colloquial shorthand. So when the Spanish speaker said the phrase verbatim on the card, the other player said, aha, you have declared via shorthand, you are ending your turn. I'm being overly simplistic with this for those that understand the game. Many of you may be familiar with the scenario. My point is this. You'd think in good spirit of the game, you'd say, here's my intention. Do you understand? And they would say, I get it. I lost. Democrats are not winning elections by going to people and saying, let me pass tax policy. They're sending ballot harvesters out who says, hey, look, Democrats, hey, and they're collecting the ballots. So, rigged? Define it your way. Are the Democrats playing by the rules? They are. They're playing to the rules and taking advantage of the system, and you think it's unfair, but it's actually just dirty politics. He says there's no way Maricopa County Republicans who oversaw the election stole it. Well, yeah, they lost. Certainly establishment Republicans don't like Kari Lake. But I don't think Republicans were sabotaging their own voters. I think what happened was they're incompetent clowns and imbeciles. Is Kari Lake out of line? No, she's not. You outright said people were disenfranchised, the elderly. This is unacceptable. Should there be a redo? In my opinion, I don't know. I don't know if you need one. Ballot curing and lawsuits may rectify this. But maybe there does need to be a redo. He says, however, a lot of media covering the spectacle have understated what happened to voters in Maricopa County. Now that is an understatement. Look at this. Kari Lake claims her voters were disenfranchised. Her voters tell a different story. No, they don't. When a voter films a video and says, I'm not backing down, the reason they're filming a video is because they're the kind of person who knows what's going on. But what about the people who don't know what's going on, who just left? Your vote mattered. 17,000 people cast their ballot into box 3. How many people walked away without casting a ballot, not knowing why their ballot wasn't taken by the machine? 17,000 is the margin of victory for Katie Hobbs. Kari Lake must file the lawsuit ASAP. And I know she will, because she's awesome. I don't know if she'll win. It's an uphill battle. But I'm glad someone is calling it out. And it looks like she has standing. So let's see it. Here's where they're going with it. Yahoo says Kari Lake's fawning tweet hints at her next career hope, Twitter users say. She tweeted, we need him now more than ever. Kari Lake is the biggest Trump supporter. She's one of them. She's a big fan. I like Trump. I'm not the biggest Trump supporter. There's so much that I do like about Trump. I am not a retribution candidate. And that's why I like Kari Lake. You know, I think Kari Lake would be a DeSantis-like governor. She would be the best of both worlds. I think DeSantis is fantastic, by the way. She would be the best of both worlds, someone who is quite a Trumpian, but with more tact. Similar to DeSantis. I think Kari Lake's better than DeSantis, to be completely honest. I haven't seen her govern, though. But, I don't know about Kari Lake running as VP for Trump. I don't like the idea of someone running as a VP after having lost their election. But Donald Trump didn't hold any office when he ran, and I can respect it. I think Ian brought this up on Timcast IRL. Kari Lake is famous. She's strong. She's a former member of the media, not your typical politician, not really a politician. I wonder. DeSantis Lake 2024. I'd definitely vote for that. I don't live in Arizona. I didn't vote in Arizona. If Kari Lake does end up on a ticket, I will absolutely support her. For now. I want to see what she campaigns on. I want to see how she handles herself in a primary and a presidential election. I don't know that Kari Lake would run for president because why would she go up against people like Trump when she says we need him now more than ever? So this is going to be interesting. People say there's going to be a primary between DeSantis and Trump. Many others. Maybe. Maybe there won't be. Some have suggested that DeSantis going up against Trump is just, he'd lose. Why do it? I think he should. I think Kari Lake should. I think they should because it'll make all of them better candidates. Kari Lake, I think, this is interesting. You know, people have said, Milo Yiannopoulos said, that DeSantis has the charisma of something unnerving, like when he gives you a feeling like when you're reaching for an object and you accidentally touch something moist, like a wet sponge. Masterfully done, Milo, by the way. It was one of the most epic takedowns or roasts of an individual. And I like Ron DeSantis, but it was so good. The long, drawn out, the accent, the wet sponge. He nailed it. It was funny. I'll give you that. But what about Kari Lake? Kari Lake doesn't have the gravitas of Trump, but she has more tact. I would love to see it. I don't know how Kari Lake goes up against Trump because she's going to be like, he's right. He's strong. I agree with him. Then why are you running against him? I don't know. But I think if you put the three of them on a stage and had them argue, Trump would have to deal with the tact of Kari Lake, with the policy success of Ron DeSantis and his double-digit support. And Kari Lake and DeSantis would have to go up against Donald Trump's vigor, his commanding and imposing power. I think Kari Lake is great. I think it's a rock, paper, scissors type scenario. All of the candidates going up against each other, they would have to become better than they are now. I like to see it. I would love to see it. I'm so excited for primary season, my friends, it's coming soon. Within a few months, we're going to start hearing the mutterings. They say Joe Biden's going to run again, but that is insane. Unless you realize they're running on the basement strategy. If Republicans do not get a massive ballot harvesting operation underway, and they better have started now, they'll lose 2024. And that's all that matters. The Democrats know it. And that's why they're going to run Joe Biden. Because it doesn't matter. They could run a ham sandwich, put a D next to it, ballot harvesting wins. So I hope you all have paid attention to where we're at in politics. And the negative outcome to all of this is we're heading towards a world where it's just R versus D. I mean, we're there. That's it. We're there. And with violence escalating, I hope things do not get bad, but it seems like they will. Vote. Because if we can get a sweeping victory, if Republican vigor combined with ballot harvesting happens, it will be a major landslide. And then after they win, they can clean up all the voting systems. Maybe then they can weed out the corruption. Here's hoping. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.